Love his music, appreciate him so much. Stranger Band, if you don't know it, look it up. I'm Kenny Schofield. On the other side of the table is Bryce Shanka. This is the American Car Classics radio program podcast. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Hope y'all doing well. I'm doing well. Bryce, you doing well?
Doing great, man.
Holiday season's coming up. It's getting a little bit cold. The leaves are falling off the oak trees. Palm trees, they don't change much.
Yeah, it's a little breezy, even down here in Florida at the moment.
Yeah, we just got done with Thanksgiving. We're into December. We've got Christmas coming up. Later in the show, we're going to be talking to Matt Avery of Meekum Auctions. And, well, I say of Meekum Auctions. Last 5 years, he's been working for Meekum Auctions. But this guy, he's got books. He's got stories. He's going to be talking to us about the top 5 Camaros of all times. I can't wait to have the conversation with him. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. You were just at the Turkey Run.
Yeah, the Turkey Run. And that's so strange to hear it called the Turkey Run. I'm a 4th generation Floridian. I've been going to this thing since late 80s. It's the Turkey Rod Run. That's what we call it. The Turkey Run is at Daytona International Speedway. And I'd say it's on the inside of the Speedway. You drive over the track to get inside and park when you're part of the show, which Lucy and I were. And I drove the 70 Nova out. I went on Friday and Saturday. It did rain a bit. The event was still good. It was still fun. Cars. This thing here, I'm looking at this orange Ford. Man, built backwards. People were in cars that blew me away. And I got to meet Martin brothers, Amanda and Joe. I got to meet Chad and Jolene from Bad Chad's Cars. We're going to be talking to them down the road here next year. It was a good event. I stopped by the tent and saw the Meekum guys. We walked the corral. There was a lot of parts and stuff that you could find and buy. And I met a guy right here in Melbourne that's got some LS's new in the box, full aluminum blocks. I'm interested in one of his 5.3s. And but what we got to walk around and see, something that is so iconic with the Rod Run, is this is the 4th largest car show in America, I believe it's touted as. And this was the 50th anniversary, and it was incredible. Batmobiles out there, helicopters are out there, dragsters, jet cars. But these people that build cars, they are moonshiners. They're everywhere, and you get to cruise the track and it was a spectacular event. Spectacular. I haven't been out there for a dozen years anyway, and it was a great adventure to get back.
So 5,000 cars at the show portion alone, and then 1,500 cars for sale, and then you had 2,000 vendors on site.
Yeah, the vendors were massive, and the food, you walked in and smell it. And look at that video, man. They made taillights out of pistons, still connected to the rods, hooked on to a pinion gear, a little bit of NOS in the back, but just the innovation, the things that we saw with the creativity of people. And you think about, I love to think about Walt Disney and Fantasia, and where was this guy at? But it was, for them to build the cars that they're doing, they're roadworthy. You're driving these cars in, and
oh, that's nice,
incredible
nice build right there.
The guy with the '68 Chevelle, unfortunately on live PD, I guess they call it. He was arrested that night. He was from North Carolina, and the video showed that he thought that he was drunk. What he did was, Bryce, he left the speedway and he did a burnout. It was a roaster. He did a burnout. And they went after him and they pulled him over, and the cop was not very fair. And I think it sucked. But the rest of the event, you see the clouds and everything else. It was a little off and stuff. There's a beautiful black Nova. I think that was 71. And man, yeah, 71, because it's got the orange bezels in the bumper. 70s had clear only. So this was all polished out and stuff. It looks super, super cool. Lowered just to the right height, and they had a vendor booth going out of that as well, I believe. So, but 200 vendors was a lot for all of that was going on.
2,000.
2,000, yeah, 2,000. 1,500 cars for sale, I believe that. The car corral was big. We parked amongst the masses and drove through at one time at a real slow pace. Had a lot of people shooting video and taking pictures, and that's always fun to have that happen. Pat's Blue Ribbon Can, that was kind of crazy too. It was like I said, the Batmobile was out there. I think that they had the Bat bike, the Bat copter, and the Bat car all together, which was pretty iconic for a lot of people that grew up on Batman and Robin stuff. So it was like I said, the 50th anniversary, and it was great. It was great. I was walking along and heard a voice and looked over, and there was Terry. Terry's the local guy that owns a 57 Chevy and a Corvette as well. I think he has a third car too. I'm talking to him about, I've got a stock frame on my 57 Chevy, and he's got a custom frame that's way low. He doesn't like it, so maybe we're going to try and trade that out.
Look, there we have a Camaro.
Yes, that's the 70 split bumper, 71 split bumper, and that was a beautiful, beautiful car. That's a 64, 65 Malibu, I think, right there, Chevelle, and it was beautiful as well.
Yeah, I remember last year. I was bummed I couldn't go this year, but last year I literally was physically exhausted from how much shooting there was to do at this event.
But when I was looking at that silver car, I was really loved it. But when I get into particulars, I'm a little OCD, I guess, and the particulars is that. They do 99% on stuff, and then it's like that last percent. Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you do that?
Finish the job. Oh, there's a Bad Chad.
Yeah, that's Bad Chad and Jolene. That's right. So that was cool. It was wet out, and that was good. I did not get a picture of Joe Martin, but they were pretty busy and stuff. I did talk to Amanda for a minute and got their email address. I got both of their all's email addresses, and so that was good for us to have and do. Awesome. So, it was a great event, though. It was a great event. I had to go out to salvage yard to pick up a couple parts for a crash car that we were building back, and so made the point worthwhile to get out there and do. And then once I got there Friday, it was a no-brainer. I had to go back. My pass was good for the 3-day, and off I went.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's an SS Nova, really cool. Yeah.
All right. Well.
So. Yeah, it was a real good time. So anyway, we just wanted to highlight that real fast. We do have Mecum auctions coming up, and we're going to be talking to Matt soon. But on the Mecum auctions, it's going to be January 2nd to the 14th. I am going out, and Bryce, I don't know what your schedule is, but I'm going to go out there and see the 4,000 cars. They're there for almost 2 weeks, I think it is. I'm going to be there for at least 8 days.
Nice.
I'm going to be covering some stuff, and you're going to put a camera in my hand, and we're going to see what kind of stuff I can do. And hopefully we can get out there and do a couple of live broadcasts. I think we're going to be doing some of that. Some live recording anyway, on scene recording, and then bring it back to the edit floor and chop half of that up. But we're going to have a lot of fun with that. This is their 25th. Now it's not, they just had their, I think, 50th auction or 75th year. Was it 50-year anniversary? I think they celebrated last year, but this is their 25th anniversary coming here to Kissimmee, doing their largest auto auction, as we get so many snowbirds that come down and enjoy our Florida winters. Yep. So
it's the big one.
I believe Matt's going to be prepared to tell us a little bit about the 25th anniversary here in Kissimmee, and I can't wait to be a part of it. So everybody, stay tuned, will you? We're going to talk, like I said, to Matt about these 5 greatest Camaros. Hang tight.
Don't try to
everybody. Welcome back. This is the American Car Classics radio program. I'm Kenny. That's Bryce. And with us today on the phone, we've got Matt Avery. Matt Avery is accomplished with Mecum and so many other things. But Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, Kenny, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I hope you're doing well. We are gearing up for Christmas and the new year, but what's been the buzz is always is Mecum's coming to town. And we know Santa Claus is on there. We know we're on his list, but Mecum is coming. And if you want something on your list, you can go there and buy it if he doesn't bring it to you. Right, Matt?
Well said. I know. The world is anticipating Santa coming to town, as you identified, but I know for the collector car world, I think some individuals and some enthusiasts might be more excited, like you said, that Mecum is coming to Kissimmee, Florida in January for the world's largest collector car auction. And man, we are so revved up, Kenny. It has been a busy year for us, and obviously this is a great time now to kind of wind down a little bit as we celebrate the holidays and some time off. But there is a fever pitch amongst the team as we gear up for everything that's going to take place in Florida.
Yeah, this is going to be January 2nd through the 14th in Kissimmee at the Osceola Heritage Park. As always, they advertise 4,000 cars. We've talked before to Mecum, and we know that it has surpassed that. And sometimes the final number isn't known until you leave because cars are being brought in and consigned all the time. It's just so much. But you said, Matt, the Mecum team, they're a family, aren't they?
Correct. So the organization was started by the Mecum family here in Marengo, not too far outside Chicago, in Marengo, Illinois, and is still heavily involved with the day-to-day operations. But beyond that, the team members that put on these auctions, I mean, just so many different professionals that are involved in putting on the best car auctions out there. It really is a close-knit group. And as you can imagine, with all the time on the road and just all the moving parts, it's a very well-oiled machine. And it really does have that kind of a family feel amongst everyone that is there on site.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily talking too much about Dana and Frank. I think we know, if you've been to Mecum, you've seen them. They're larger than life, and it's what they do. But to be part of that family, I feel that when I talk to John, he's like Frank's brother. And it just feels that everybody on air and when it's a circus that comes to town. And and I love the people that get there early enough to get to watch the opening of it. The ceremony is spectacular on its own, but the energy that is built up by the auctioneers and Frank being on site for every single one. I know there's a couple double up weeks, like over the COVID, we were doing Chattanooga and Chicago and stuff, and they spread themselves thin, but and when I talked about the family, it's just that you guys really are just a big family that travels together and helps people out, with their dreams. And it's just amazing. So a little bit about you, Matt. You live in Chicago, obviously.
Yep. So I live in Chicago, and I'm a career automotive journalist. I've been on staff with Mecum for coming up on 5 years, and have been very fortunate and blessed to work in a lot of different areas of the automotive journalist aspect of it, from TV to web to print to some book writing. I've been able to do a lot, and still enjoying the ride.
That's awesome. You are a photographer, as you stated, and you're a writer, and as you say, and you've got a good new book out. I think it came out a couple years ago. Is that right?
Actually, no, just earlier this summer.
Okay, this summer.
Camaros Special Editions is my latest book that's just that just came out.
Okay, and this is not your first book.
Correct. It's a follow-up to my first book, which came out in fall of 2018.
Okay.
And that really has got my name out there just because of the specialized nature of the topics that I covered. That first book was entitled Copo, which covers the arguably the pinnacle of classic Chevrolet performance, that era during the 1960s, primarily from 65 to 72, when the Chevrolet central office was doing all kinds of backdoor projects, producing some of the most legendary collector Chevrolet cars today.
Was there anybody in your family as you were growing up that was instrumental in you? And I know we talked a little bit about, being gearheads and stuff or what, but you said you grew up with the classic cars and Matchbox and things in your pockets and stuff, but was there somebody in your family that worked on or tore them down, or that had an interest that made you think more about them than that?
Yeah. Growing up, I was, as we talked about a little bit off air, I've always been into cars, as many little boys and girls are, just fascinated by them. And I will say my dad encouraged me in this journey. My dad is career military and military intelligence, and always liked cars, but never was out in the driveway, rebuilding stuff, but always certainly encouraged and fostered me. And I will say one of the connections that I've had is growing up, my dad would always tell me stories about when he was stationed at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. The vehicle that he had was a blue Volkswagen bus, and he would load it up with surfboards and pick up some of his buddies and drive out to the beaches. And one of the special mementos, Kenny, that I have is I have a photo of him with that bus on the shores of one of the Hawaiian beaches. And so I will say, and bringing it really full circle, one of the cars that I have currently it's a Volkswagen. It's not the bus, but just one of their station wagons, and it's blue. And I will say some of that was influenced just with that connection with kind of the car that he had as a young man, and just kind of finding some common ground there.
That is really cool.
Yeah. And, it's one of those things that you never really think much as you're growing up until, you start spending years enjoying something. And it's also been fun just with my work relating to classic cars, just the stories that come out from other family members too, that again, just, you never really would talk classic cars until you start to, passions start to be identified. And so it's been great to connect with other family members and certainly friends. And obviously everyone has a connection over a car, whether they had one or were driving one. And so that's always been great. But so kind of going back to your question. So yeah, so always encouraged by my dad. And like I said, finding some kind of inspiration from just the cars of his youth and kind of finding that some common ground. But really beyond that, it just was kind of a drive within me as I started to get into into schooling, high school and college, Kenny. It really was about the idea of I wanted a career that allowed me to be around just cars that excited people. And so that's always kind of driven me to be connected. And I had the chance to work in some dealerships as part of some vocational training. And I remember during that process of working with my teacher about selecting a local dealership to go work for, I remember turning down many, many opportunities just at other brands that would have happily had a young aspiring student like myself, only from the standpoint of I really wanted to be with some of the more premium brands that kind of built cars a little bit more exciting. And so I was able to accomplish that by spending some time working with a Mercedes-Benz dealership and then a BMW dealership. And so you can imagine as a young man how impressionable that was to be in a mainline dealership and around some very cool and in some cases high performance cars. Just that really got me excited to be around just vehicles that kind of up the ante a little bit. Yeah, I didn't really know why you pick European dealerships over the ones, and I don't know what years you were doing dealerships, but it was, I think you said about 20 years ago. Yeah, correct. Yeah, about 20 years ago. Yeah. And so a lot was happening with both of those brands, just in terms of even as their performance was evolving with Mercedes AMG division and then the BMW M Group. And so I will say it was exciting for me. And I don't know if I would say necessarily that it was the European brands I sought out, but only from the standpoint of they just had something a little bit more interesting about them, at least to me as a teenage guy. It just, and it paid off. Like I said, just, it really opened my eyes to just vehicles that are out there that just kind of raise the bar.
Well, speaking of raising the bar in European vehicles, I got a question for you about the new Corvette, the C8. Do you think that with that model, they've closed the gap between American sports cars and the performance previously considered something you could only find in a European car?
100%. You know, the C8 really has been a revolutionary model for Chevrolet, hands down. Just, I remember all of the skepticism in the years leading up to the launch about how many people were just so baffled or frustrated that Chevrolet, you know, would go to a mid-engine layout. And when the car came out, just the performance and the capability and the price tag was jaw dropping, and it still is. You know, here we are now 4 model years in to that platform, and it's still a very highly sought after car of all trims, just because of how good it came out. You know, initially with that $60,000 price tag, I think it's gone up since then, but still, for what you got for that, it was very impressive. And, you know, it also ties into another aspect of their model lineup, which I will say has me kind of bummed out, being more of a Camaro enthusiast, is that with that price tag, guys, it really left Camaro no room to exist within the lineup, only because $60,000 for that performance was very affordable. And it was just hard for Camaro to fit in underneath that, you know, with such a good package. And so I will say, I do think that contributed to some of the reasons why we're not getting, at least currently, a 7th generation two-door Camaro pony car. But be that as it may, that C8 Corvette really was a game changer.
Yeah, right. And in the 4 years of production, I don't know how many I guess upgrades have they made. Was, you know, the first model year, we never want to buy a first model year because you don't know, but I think those days are far and gone by now. I think all the technology that they're putting in has already been tried and proven. So they're just putting it all together in a new package and stuff. But I don't think that there's been a lot of, hey, we need to fix this, like the first one had a problem or anything. I think it's been a pretty steady production through the 4 years, hasn't it?
It has, you know, and the Corvette has been, for the most part, free from any kind of major recall or any, you know, major catastrophe. It's been very reliable. And, you know, because of that, it's had a growing fan base. I think there's a lot of shoppers that, you know, Corvette has been a perennial favorite for decades, and it remains in volume the number one model that we see at Mecum auctions. Sure. of all the generations going back to 1953. But I will say this current platform really brought in a new era of interest from, I think, a lot of customers that had not considered Corvette before, only because of that reputation of you know, being a traditional V8, you know, up front rear wheel drive platform, and then to get this new generation. And I think it really did blur the line between that traditional American platform that we had gotten so used to, and some of the more exotic offerings, like the European offerings that have been around for many, many years now. It really kind of blurred that line and put Corvette on a different level in the minds of a lot of enthusiasts. Even
watching, you know, trailers of the car being built and stuff, and the pictures, seeing it, everything else. When we first saw one, the first time we saw it pull up a car show, or when we saw it, it was. Is that because you want to say that's an absolutely Italian car or something else going, but it just is so advanced for what a Corvette is, and I'm sure that there were diehards that scoffed at it and stuff. There's no doubt in my mind that it is a number one selling car in any platform. I'm born in 66. The first car I thought I would get would be a split window 63. I quickly knew that was going to be out of my price range no matter what I did in life. And so I love the 66 because it's my birthday, but really the 67 Stingray is the Corvette that I love the most. I covet that. Knowing again that I wasn't going to be able to really afford that, I fell in love with the first gen Monte Carlos. And so I have 2 of those, and I love those. But you said to me, I believe off air, we were talking about, maybe it was the beginning of the on air, or maybe that was the first on air time, but you love the passion and the story about a car. This is the journalism in you. I was lucky enough to get a 70 Nova. Her name is Lucy, because the original owner bought her in Merritt Island, right up the road from me. She bought it in 1970 new. She drove it till she was 102 years old. She passed away at 104. Her name was Lucille, and the last name I can't pronounce, but it started with a B. So we named the car Lucy B. It had 24,000 original miles, original paint job. She willed it to her grandson, who was handicapped, Matt. So he parked it in his carport for 14 years, right up the road on the beach. And it just the patina just happened, like a stained glass window with a water sprinkler from a well that hits it, and it just made it beautiful. And I pulled the 6-cylinder and Power Glide out, and I put a 350 and a 700 R4, and I made the 10 bolt posi and put 15-inch rallies on it. But otherwise, she is absolutely original. And I'll park next to a $120,000 car at a car show, and people go, "Oh my gosh, look at that car!" And it's just so cool to see it. I've never won an award, but it's just to see the people that love that, and when they hear the story, it's so cool to have something that has that, I don't know, that provenance to it. So yeah, so I love a real good story. You, along with your writing, Matt, you do video photography. So I want to talk a little bit, if we can, real quick, if you'll hang on with us and stuff. That pictures, man, I've seen some crappy pictures of cars, and people want to sell them. Does Mecum offer to take pictures of those cars for people before an auction?
Absolutely. So one of the services that our team offers is to have photography done by one of our excellent staff, professional photographers that are very good, some of the best in the business. Now, I will say you touched on the fact that you don't have to do that. If you want to consign a car and bring it to Mecum, you don't have to take advantage of that service. There is an added fee for that. And you bring up a good point about, especially if you're getting ready to sell a vehicle and bring it to a Mecum auction. How do you go about presenting that? And so from the years that I've been shooting automotive, I will say that I've kind of got my own little kind of rhythm down and kind of some guidelines that I always throw out to people. And, it's funny, Kenny, I just had a conversation with one of our customers who had this exact same question related to a vehicle that was coming to Mecum, Kansas City, held just a couple weeks ago. And he was getting the car consigned and was talking about photography. And I was working with him about how to go about shooting that. And it was so interesting because, at that point, he didn't have a lot of time to work with it was important to get clean images of the car to present it to potential buyers. And so I will say that's one of the first things that I would say to anyone, regardless of your skill set with a camera, is that keep in mind, you're not trying to shoot a magazine spread. You don't have to do, time lapse, sunset, with LED strobes and all this stuff. You obviously can, but the most important thing is just to get a clean shot, obviously not necessarily the vehicle itself, obviously keep that clean. But when I say clean shot, just that presents the car and shows it in full clarity. And so that's one of the most important things I would say. And so again, don't worry about your backdrop. Obviously don't shoot in front of a chain link fence with streamers on it or right. I'm just trying to think of the most bizarre background or something, but just, again, keep it simple, keep the focus on, you're just trying to get high quality images of the car to present to potential buyers. Again, you're not trying to win awards with the photography. There's no competition when the car is on the block. But again, the cleaner you present the car, the better it's going to be, because people can see it for what it is. So that's one of the topics. The other thing that I would tell people is, obviously I get asked a lot about, is lighting. And obviously never shoot into the sun. That never goes well. So always have the sun to your back and watch your shadow creeping over. But I will say, with today's cameras, even with iPhones, I will say it's not that hard to get good images. But the key thing is as much as you can control on site, again, don't have your shadow, put the sun behind you, but don't have your shadow casting right over, the middle of your car or something. But if you look for those kind of things, just get the car by itself without any kind of distracting elements, and you're already on your way to getting some good images. Yeah.
We have a car that we painted, I believe it's like a 79 Carmen Ghia that's going to go through. Its lot number is B101. I haven't looked at the pictures yet, but the owner took them and he submitted them, and that's how he wanted it to be. So that's how it's going to be. We have a nice set of property here that we have a backdrop of the Indian River and stuff that we could have offered him we did offer him to do, and he didn't. He just, I think, took them at home. So we did a lot of metal and paint work on this thing, and we hope he bought it at Mecum 2 years ago, and then once he got home, unfortunately, wasn't as happy with what he bought. So we're going to hope that it gets him a little money back in his investment that he spent. Did you come to Florida for the turkey run?
I was, just got back not too long ago there for that 50th. It was the 50th this year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The 50th Daytona Turkey Run.
Were you in the tent next to Bad Chad and Jolene?
Yeah,
okay.
That's right.
I stopped by and said hello. What I did is you were on the phone, and I said to the lady next to you, I said, y'all aren't doing 50 off passes or anything this year. She said no, because you used to offer discount for bidders passes at the Rod Run.
We haven't in years past. This year, I know I was joined by, we had a consignment agent, Brett, on site, who stayed busy all week long fielding questions. Obviously, interest is high, being in market in Florida for the auction.
Yeah.
I do know that he was giving out tickets. I know we had some special access or tickets that he was giving out. So I know that was there. That was a popular takeaway for a lot of people. But yeah, we always try to kind of mix up a little bit and do something different, especially when we're there on site at an event like that.
The Gold Bidders Pass, that is good for any auction all year long, right?
Correct.
Man, that's a great value, huh?
It is, for a lot of people that I know a lot of people, if you're new to Mecum auctions, you're probably thinking, well, I don't need that. But I will say it really is the best value, and it comes with a lot of great added value to it in terms of just some other on-site perks. And so it really is a great way to kind of get the full experience and to really take in Mecum auctions. Well, I don't think there's a better way to do it.
No, I know that I'm going to go to 3 auctions next year, and that's 4 because we get Mecum twice. You're doing this July, we're doing the January. I go to Chattanooga all the time, and I'm going to be out to Vegas next year. You all do your Vegas show right after SEMA, isn't that right? I think
we do, and I will say, I'm just only because I'm double checking, and I will say our gold is we have an annual value package, which is good for the full 12 months. We have made some changes, and our gold is flipping to be per auction. So something to check, but still it's worth it to have for the auctions that you're going to be at. Seek out that gold. But yeah, we have an annual tier that's good for the full 12 months. But to answer your question, you were asking about an event and that we'll be at.
Yeah, SEMA. Well, SEMA, I believe that I spoke to John this year while he was at SEMA. You all had a vendor's booth. You were there at SEMA representing Mecum, or John was, and he texted me later and said that he was staying in town because next week they were having their auction. So Vegas came right after the SEMA show, which is in Vegas.
Yeah, that was a crazy month, Kenny, just because of how much was happening in that Vegas area between SEMA and then our auction, and then right after was the big F1 race. So, man, if you're into cars, and I don't know if there's a better month to be in Vegas, but the back-to-back weeks of SEMA and then our auction, yeah, that's just a crazy time, just because of how much happens at SEMA. And this year was no different. We're outside. We're in our kind of traditional corner there, right at the main intersection there. We had a great display. I've commented to just several people my travels since SEMA. I know we always try to kind of raise the bar at an event like SEMA, and I thought this year we really did have a great display of diversity of cars that obviously were not just interesting or cool, but really fit into that overall SEMA vibe. We had a gorgeous custom CUDA that was built on a 22 Challenger Red Eye. Red Eye. Did you see that when you came by our area?
No, I did not. I did not come by this year. I'm going to go in 24. I've never been to SEMA, so I just got to talk to John
you've got to come.
I'm gonna. It's this year.
But either way. And then, so we had that on display, and then another car that we had that will be crossing the block here in Kissimmee in just a couple of weeks. We had one of the Kendig, the new Corvettes, the CF1s. Yeah. And it's really cool to be in an event like that and to be broadcasting and advertising our service as the auction house that we are, but then also just to have some incredibly highly built vehicles. Just really, it was awesome. They got a lot of attention, and man, that SEMA week, as always, was crazy. I'm trying to think of some other things that just there's so much to take in. It almost needs to be a 2-week show.
And it's not.
And
it's really not even a full week, is it? I don't think that it is it?
I think it's just under, because I believe it kicks off on Tuesday and then kind of wraps up with like a Friday night cruise or something.
Yeah. So. But it's great for the town. Vegas is growing so much with their sports and everything else and all this. Bryce, I think you wanted to jump into his selection of top 5. Is that where we're going? Which is
we could go to a break.
Okay, then we're going to take a quick break. So, Matt, if you don't mind hanging on for a second, you can get a drink of water like I'm going to get. And to our listeners, we'll be right back if Matt will have us. All right?
Coming at you like a ball of fire. You better let me be. Coming at you, a wings of desire. You better pin up on a chain of me now. I'm out of the tail now, baby. And nothing you can do. I'm coming to get you. Alright. Woo!
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I'm Kenny. That's Bryce. And still on the phone, Matt Avery. Matt, we sure do appreciate you hanging out with us, man. That's super cool. I asked you when I first talked to you this morning what the temperature was in Chicago. Did you ever find out?
No, it still looks cold from looking outside the window.
You don't have a dog? You don't have a dog that you have to let outside or anything?
No, I don't. But as soon as we're done recording, I'll go put my hand on the window and see how cold. I will say it's not as bad as it sounds, or as it looks, I should say. I think we're in the 40s. We've had kind of a little bit of a warm snap. So it's not as brutal as Chicago is known for, but it's definitely no Florida temps. I can tell you that much.
I lived outside Macomb for a little while, for about 4 years. And when I went up there as a Floridian, and I learned that you had to untuck your shirt and then pull your coveralls down, then untuck your undershirt or your second shirt and then your jeans and then your just to go pee. I was like,
Oh yeah,
I get a catheter. I'm done. So, all right, Matt Avery, I appreciate you so much. Listen, the segment here we're going to get into is something that I think all of us will have a little love with, and we're going to ask the question to you:
top 5 Camaros of all time.
All time. So that's a hitter, because this is what, 50 years of course. What was it? 64 was the first year.
67 was first model year for Camaro.
Okay, so do the math on what is that? 54 years, something like that.
Yeah, with the final 2024 model year Camaro, that's obviously kind of rolling off the production line as we get closer to December. It won't line up with an anniversary. That would have been when would that have been? A couple years ago.
2 years, yeah.
So we don't have a nice bookend. But either way, over 50 years of Camaro and now 6 generations of the iconic pony car.
Wow, yeah. So tell us number 5. What is the fifth? Do you think
The 5th greatest?
Yeah,
all
5th
right.
greatest.
Well, all right. So if we're talking top 5 Camaros of all time, I'm going to lead off with perhaps maybe a confrontation or not, or maybe a Camaro that might be disputed. But I'm going to say the 1967 Gory's Black Panther. Have you guys ever come across one of those or heard the story of that line?
No,
Sir.
All right. So I'll basically, and I know a lot of Camaro enthusiasts might be scratching their head, and let me tell you why I'm willing to say that this limited run of Camaros is significant and noteworthy. So during the 1960s, Camaro debuts in 1967. Largest engine at the time was SS350, and then in the early winter of it debuts in fall of 66. With that SS350. And then in early winter of 67, they finally released the SS396. There is no 427 option. So because of that, that's what leads to this boom around the country of all of these aftermarket tuners that are rushing to meet that customer demand for a 427 equipped Camaro. The 427 engine had been around in other models within the Chevrolet lineup, including Corvette and some of the full-size cars. So, of course, all these new buyers that are looking at this pony car are thinking, I want a 427. Making it more irritating is that the 427 fit within the engine bay of the Camaro. So anyway, that's what leads to, again, iconic Camaros like the Nicky efforts, Yanko, Baldwin Motion. But the reason why I like what Gory's was doing, Gory's was a Canadian dealership up in Toronto, and they are one of the first to not offer a 427 Camaro, but to provide a robust package that goes with the car. During that first year in particular, 1967, a lot of the other players, guys that were doing that 427 Camaro conversion, the primary focus was on the powertrain upgrade, meaning that those dealerships, whether it be Nicky here in Chicago, the Baldwin Motion team out in New York, or Dana out in California, their primary focus was selling the Camaro to a customer and then upselling for the 427 short block or full engine exchange. But I like Gory's because what Gory's did was they actually put a lot of thought into the marketing of the cars. In addition to that 427 conversion, they actually gave the cars a motif. They were all black and gold, and they had some very exclusive badges and packaging. And I will say, to me, just kind of dialed in, not just to the performance of the cars, but the marketing of the cars. Gory's stands ahead of the others in terms of offering a more complete marketing package. And they called them Black Panthers, and they even use big cat imagery in the marketing of the car. So very rare Camaros. Don't really see them here too often in the States, but again, definitely one of the most interesting eras of Camaro performance.
What was the production number on those?
Good question. Somewhere in the ballpark of several dozen, I would say between 25 and 35, between 1967 and 1968. Extremely rare cars. I myself know of 7. Most of those are in Canada. And I will say one of the reasons, because I know a lot of people are probably wondering, well, Matt, if these cars are so legendary, how come we haven't seen them, or how come they don't come up? And again, a couple of points to keep in mind.
Great.
One, it was a Canadian program. And then the other interesting aspect is that a lot of the cars that survived do not have a 427. And I know this because from talking with original owners who went into the showroom there at Gory's to buy these cars, the problem was that Gory's strategy was, let's put together something interesting, a black Camaro with gold highlights and some unique wheels, some badging, and then the customer comes in, and then we can upsell them to that 427 top tier powertrain swap. The problem is a lot of original owners liked just the look of the black and gold and said, I don't need the 427. I'm happy with the 350 or 396.
Wow.
So they kind of, I don't want to say shot themselves in the foot. They almost were
They did by catering to them. They should have said, this is how the package is.
Well, and I will say, yeah, right. I mean, I get they were trying to, because you guys got to keep in mind that at that time, Camaro was brand new. And so obviously, even as a new model, a lot of customers weren't focused on performance. Some of them just liked the unique cosmetics. And what Gory's came up with, again, was very interesting, very innovative is probably a good word to attribute to them, and ahead of Yanko, who would gain ground very quickly in the subsequent years. Again, not just in terms of offering performance upgrades, but how he actually went about marketing the cars. Because as we'll talk about with some of these other vehicles on this list, to me, that's what makes some of these Camaros legendary, is not just the outright performance, but the long-standing legacy that they left behind that comes through innovative marketing and distribution of the news of the product.
Absolutely. That's, and I didn't know about it, and I'd never even heard of Gory's, so I've made a couple notes because I want to get into that a little bit.
Yeah,
number 4.
All right, number 4, I'm going to bring it up to a little bit more modern day, the 2014-2015 Z28. So obviously a legendary moniker, returned during this 5th gen era. Obviously that trim debuts in 1967, and throughout all the era of Camaro production has always been attributed with the more track-focused offering. And this was definitely the case with a 2-year run, being equipped with a 427 LS7 V8 sourced from that C6 Z06 Corvette, putting out 505 horsepower and 481 pound-feet of torque. Just under 2,000 were built, 1,747 between those two runs. And guys, I got to say, by all accounts, this is a modern collectible, just because it fires on all cylinders, no pun intended, in terms of having true raw potential and performance capabilities and being a track monster. And then you have that limited production. this is definitely a future collectible to keep on your radar. If you're a Camaro fan, you've got to have one of these in your garage.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow. All right, number 3.
All right, number 3. I'm going to go also a little bit late model, but I'm going to go to a 4th gen legend. 2002 Berger Supercar Camaro Dick Harrell edition. 35 were built. This was a wild campaign. Again, talking about marketing innovation, wild campaign created by the crew over at Berger Chevrolet in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Dealership steeped in history and heritage, with having their being involved with all kinds of Chevrolet performance, notably during the 1960s, ordering Copo Camaros and even one of the legendary 1969 Z01s. But the Berger family still involved with the business, and Matt Berger during this era redefined the availability of showroom speed. This would be the last time, in my opinion, that a program like this would ever happen, where you had a dealership partnering with an outside performance tuner. In this case, it was the performance shop of GMMG in Marietta, Georgia, and to build these high level builds, but then also guys getting support from Chevrolet corporate, with Scott Settlemeyer, who was the Camaro brand manager at the time, actually on board and helping to allocate vehicles for the program. All that on top of the fact that the vehicle itself featured both cosmetic and radical performance upgrades. So all of these are identified with an extreme wide body conversion to them. And then there was all kinds of performance upgrades. Most of these received what's called a Phase 3X package. And it was a C5R 427 rated 630 horsepower, but just a very extreme radical build.
Yeah.
And then the Berger supercar connotation. Supercar has always been kind of attached. In the classic era, supercar meant something different than what it does now, where supercar kind of typically connotates something like a Porsche Carrera GT or a McLaren. Yeah. Supercar during the classic era was a way that a lot of these muscle cars were advertised as having some performance chops. So Berger ties in there. And then, of course, Dick Harrell edition was to connect with the legendary drag racer of the 1960s, who was a huge Chevrolet proponent. And so a lot of heritage tied up, but 35 were built. And again, we're starting to see these cross the block at Mecum auctions more regularly. They're creeping up fast in value, and definitely another must-have for any top Camaro collection.
Wow. Yeah, it's only 35. So I mean, are they all accounted for and survived?
So funny you should ask. I will say, as part of my journalistic work, I'm actually on the trek to track down and document each and every one in person. And so I will say I am up to 19, having done that for 19 of these cars, guys. And I will say
that's awesome.
You know, the way that I explain it, guys, is the process started during my research for the Camaro Special Editions book. Obviously, I wanted to cover these cars, and obviously interacting with 35 cars for a part of the book was not necessary. But once I started getting enough for the book, my interest was piqued and I wanted to dive even further. And the way I equate it is, you know how some enthusiasts who are into sports have it to go to every baseball stadium around the country?
Yeah.
Or, to
NASCAR track or something, right?
Or something. For us car enthusiasts, this was kind of the mission that I have. And so I'm well on my way, and I've got a busy couple months ahead, as I've got many more that are aware of my work and documenting these cars. And so I will say, guys, of the 35, there's probably only 2 or 3 that are kind of off the grid, but very well, very well known project. And, the thing that also helps with the legacy, as we talk about why certain, in this case, Camaros resonate for years and years and years, a lot of that has to do with continued support, obviously with Yanko, for the cars of the 1960s. What really helped to put them back on the radar of enthusiasts was when, in the last 10 years, that revitalized 5th and 6th gen offering came back out, that introduced the model to a lot of younger enthusiasts that then fueled them to want to go back and understand Yanko's heritage. And the same thing is happening with a lot of the Berger Camaros, with Berger still being in business. And actually they're coming up in 2025 on their 100th anniversary of being in business. But a very dynamic dealership and a very active car show. Every August they hold their all GM car show. I've been invited in the last couple of years as a guest speaker, and have been able to take it in, and you see the passion, not just for the Chevrolet products, but for customers that go there from states away to participate in this car show or to buy a car throughout the year because it's come from Berger. And so that really also helps to continue to fuel the passion. And again, Matt Berger and his team there love their heritage. They embrace it, which also helps to kind of keep interest high in these cars. And there's other Berger Camaros that were built during this 4th gen era that we haven't even talked about. But again, all that really helps to kind of cultivate that passion and love for enthusiasts when there's ongoing rapport with the crew that actually put them together. It adds a whole nother level of interest for a lot of enthusiasts.
When we talked about Gory's, the Black Panther, and you said 7, I said to myself, he's interested in where these cars are. And so I thought it would come up, and it did, and that's pretty awesome. I do love that. What state is the Berger car show in? Where's that?
So that's in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay.
And that is held on site at their Chevrolet dealership right there, not too far from downtown Grand Rapids. And they've already announced the dates for this year. I encourage people, if you just head to their website, you can get all the details, but it's a 2-day event, and it's just a great celebration. Again, how many times are you able to go to a dealership that's been in business for 100 years, and not just in 100 years, but one that has centered around performance? And again, Berger did a lot of work during the 1960s with a lot of legendary Camaros there. And it's just so encouraging to see how overseeing the dealership, and he has been for a number of years, how he continues to embrace what his dad did, and just have the lineage and carrying on that torch. And I will say, guys, even their 6th gen Camaros, they're not doing any performance modifications or no programs. But I will say it's pretty cool when you go down the lineup, and on the back, Berger had a badge that they started putting on all of their cars during the 1960s, but in particular on the Camaros, it was a little chrome by Berger script. And so again, when you see Camaros from the 1960s that were sold at the dealership, you want to see that. That's a hallmark of having been through that dealership. And so they've kind of updated it, and now it's a graphic, but it's still got the same font. And I know for a lot of enthusiasts who are shopping for a new Camaro, making the pilgrimage, again, hours away to go to Berger Chevrolet to buy one of those Camaros just because it has that by Berger on the back, and you've got the paperwork, the window sticker that says delivered to Berger Chevrolet. And, a lot of them are asking Matt Berger to sign it, just because, again, it's part, it's part of the allure of being able to partake in such a storied institution. But August, Grand Rapids, Michigan, definitely worth it for any Chevrolet and definitely any Camaro enthusiast to come to.
Yeah, I never even thought about that, Matt, but it is pretty cool because here again, you and I, we kind of talked, we love the story. So that's super cool. Number 2.
All right, number 2, I'm going to throw it to the OG of Camaro limited edition programs, Don Yanko. But I'm gonna throw out one of the more not the most well-known effort, the 1968 Yanko Camaro. A lot of enthusiasts, a lot of Camaro enthusiasts, the 1969 Yanko Camaro is one of the most recognized cars, classic muscle cars, I'd argue, of all time, just because it's the 1969 Camaro body style. And then obviously what Don Yanko did with the graphics were so bold and that side stripe. But one of my favorite Camaros from his first generation efforts, 1967 and 1969, is what he and his team did in 1968, because it's kind of a hybrid. It's a hybrid in terms of performance. As we talked about with Gory's, in 1967, Camaro debuts with no 427 option as an RPO, a regular production option, right? Something that you could order from the factory. So because of that, around the country, you have this rush from dealers and tuners that are offering a 427 upgrade, if you will, for a Camaro. And so what happens is that dealers are happy to invest in those efforts, including launching their own in-house performance tuner, which is, again, many dealerships did just because they saw how much demand there was. So that's the case with, Nicky, who, they had a thriving dealership, but to enhance the Camaro offerings, they expand their in-house capabilities. They hired Dick Harrell himself to come launch that and organize that. And Don Yanko is doing the same thing in 1967 at his dealership, his Chevrolet store in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania. He's having his techs do a 427 short block conversion in 1967 as customers come in and say, hey, I want more power. Now, in 1967, Don Yanko didn't have all of the kind of the bells and whistles of the package like his peers. He was focused primarily on doing the powertrain upgrade. Gory's is, in my opinion, the only one that actually focused on the cosmetics. That starts to shift in 1968, where Don Yanko starts to not just focus on the engine upgrade, but he starts to kind of flesh out his concept for his Yanko supercar or sports cars, as they would be known. And so I really like the 1968 because it uses a Copo, but not for the 427. So what happens in 1969, and one of the reasons why that car is so legendary, is that Don Yanko is able to use the central office production order. That's the Copo paperwork, the Copo that the phrase everyone throws around. Yeah. He's able to use that to have Chevrolet actually install the L72 iron block 427 that is not an RPO. He's able to have Chevrolet install that at the factory, and then he's getting completed 427 Camaros, and he's just putting on his stickers and his badging and then selling those cars. Okay. So in 1968, he wants that to happen, right? He's aware. He's thinking, I can't scale if I have to have my techs, do the engine conversions. If I could get a completed 427 Camaro and not have to pay my tech to swap the engine, and then on top of that, to get rid of the old 396 or whatever engine came out. So he's really aware. So he pitches Chevrolet and they say, Don, we're not ready to do that. But they are able to meet him halfway. And so that's where we see the first use of the Copo 9737. So it was a central office production order, but not for the 427, but for other elements that would support a 427 conversion. So it gets those cars that he orders in 1968 get elements like a 140 mile per hour speedometer. They get a larger sway bar and some other upgrades because Chevrolet knows he's going to do a 427 conversion, but they're not ready to do it themselves, but they're kind of supporting him. So I love that story. And I just love the look. Don Yanko was experimenting with doing his own fiberglass hoods and deck lids, and that's where we start to see the use of the iconic red, white, and blue Yanko crest. And so I just love these cars. They are quickly going up in value. Somewhere in the ballpark of around 60 to 80 were built. And when we see them at auction, they are legendary cars that regularly go to $500,000, if not more, just because of the rarity and the connection to Don Yanko, but also being part of that foundational era before he really was coming along in 1969.
Well, as you said, Gory's maybe set the bar for that, and then for Yanko to come in the next year or so to do this, he really did it red, white, and blue. I mean, he thought about that probably for about 2 seconds and said, no brainer.
Exactly. Yanko, and I will say that racing crest, or I should say the Yanko crest as it's called today was very common in that era. I will say it's not exactly original to Don Yanko in terms of a lot of, drag racers were using a similar motif. Yeah. But you're exactly right, Kenny. He seized on that, recognize that, hey, the Camaro is a all-American pony car, might as well have Yanko, Chevrolet Yanko sports cars embrace that. And I think that has really paid off. And one of the reasons why Yanko today still holds a lot of weight with collectors and enthusiasts, being built and assembled right there in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania, outside of Pittsburgh. What an all-American coal mining area, just kind of represents red, white, and blue, good old-fashioned American muscle performance. And so you got to include a Yanko Camaro. And when we talk top Camaros, and for me, it's the 1968.
All right. Matt, we're anxious then. Let's keep this rolling for another couple more minutes and tell me what you think, man, all time, number one, out of all the builds, out of all the productions, is it, tell me this real quick, a teaser. Is it something from General Motors or did it come from another line?
So it came from General Motors.
All right.
And in my opinion, it is the pinnacle of all 6 generations of Camaro performance and representing what the platform can do when it is dialed up to 11. And it is by far the most desirable Camaro of all time, one of the must-have inclusions in any world-class collection. And unless you want some more hints, I'll go ahead and reveal what it is.
Tell us what it is. What do you got?
All right. So it's coming in at number one, top Camaro of all time has to be the 1969 Camaro ZL1. No conversation of top Camaros can exclude this legendary model. So we've talked, guys, about the evolution between the first year of that Camaro to 1969. A lot happens. The car debuts in 1967. You see a rush to up the performance with the tuners. And then in 1969, you see the high water mark. And curious enough, it actually comes from within Chevrolet and within General Motors. Again, we talked about how the role that these outside tuners play, just as they do today, like we talked about with Berger and GMMG, tuners will play a role in being able to go further out on the metaphorical ice, than a manufacturer is willing to go. But interesting enough, it's actually Chevrolet that builds 69 of these limited edition Copo Camaros. So this was another effort that was processed through the central office. And it comes from a dealer out in La Harpe, Illinois, Western Illinois, Fred Gibb, another name that should carry a lot of weight with enthusiasts. Yep. Fred also was very instrumental in Chevrolet performance during this era with his dealership out in kind of rural Illinois, but yet he was still tapped into the need to have top tier performance variants. And so in 1969, he does something unthinkable. He orders 50 of these cars after working with Chevrolet that they were going to be able to even produce these. And what makes these cars so legendary is the fact that each and every one was equipped with a very radical 427. That's another common theme, guys, that stands out with Camaro lineage. We talked about the 427 being included in two of the other cars, that 5th gen Z28, and then of course that 4th gen Berger Camaro. But 427 holds a lot. It's very weighty, and a lot of it has to do with the ZL1 having a 427. In this case, it was all aluminum. It was very exotic at the time, but it was obviously designed to save weight, help dissipate heat. And it was built from the get-go, guys, to dominate drag racing. And just as with any other automotive venture, to compete in the classes that the automakers wanted to win in was the stock classes, right? The one, that old adage of win on Sunday, sell on Monday. You want to communicate to the crowds watching, to the thousands of people watching, hey, that car that just won this race or that heat, I can go buy it. That's the gold mine, right? Because then you start to get people excited who want to come in and kind of live out their racing dreams. And so the ZL1 was all about that, where it was to put a flag in the sand and say Camaro is a serious performer and it will dominate drag racing. And Dick Harrell, again, his name comes up. He was very instrumental in helping get the car together with Chevrolet, working with them and exactly on getting that 427 dialed in. And then, of course, it was his race team that went out and campaigned these cars. And interesting note, one of his drivers was Shay Nichols, a young female driver at the time, but she actually wheeled one of these for a number of races that year. But just a legendary part of the Camaro story. 69 were built, no badging on them whatsoever. There's no ZL1 badge on it. Also speaks to kind of the sleeper nature of it with the steel wheels and the dog dish hubcaps, making it even more legendary. It doesn't scream ZL1. And to a lot of enthusiasts, if you don't know what you're looking for, you might kind of overlook it just because it doesn't scream, high performance, track terror. Yeah. But definitely something legendary. And just wrapping up my thoughts on this car, this one did get processed through a Copo central office production order, receiving each of these Copos, guys, would get a number to identify it, right? So this one is Copo 9560. But when you go through the paperwork on these cars, you'll see that, and that's an immediate red flag that, man, this is one of the legends.
Okay, so the first thing I want to ask about all this on the Copo is full blown title, or I think I saw on a Richard Rawlings Gas Monkey Garage show one time that they didn't come with a title. They weren't street legal or something. Is that?
Okay, so good question, and it's so let me break it down for you. So what Richard Rawlings was involved with has been the resurgence of a Copo trim, starting it with the 5th gen Camaro. Okay. So the car that I'm talking about is the predecessor to that, and the reason why Chevrolet brought back the Copo Camaros. So in 1969, there was a variety of Copo Camaros. Again, and a Copo just means that it was processed through the Chevrolet central office. Yeah. And so there's no badging that says Copo. You have to go through paperwork to know what you're looking at to understand that it was processed through that. Okay. So what happens, guys, is that fast forward into the 5th generation of the Camaro, when that car returns, Chevrolet, their marketing team obviously recognizes the significance of what Copo means to them, and so they offer that on the drag, the drag only. I think they call them body and whites. The drag cars, the drag Copo Camaros. So that's what Richard, for part of his show, I think he bought several of them, and they offer, I'm trying to think if they offer them for 24, but they did them for about 10 years. And just like the originals being the 1969, they only offered 69 per year. And I think you had to have a drawing to get one, but kind of a different offshoot of this forerunner of the legendary Camaro Z01 from 1969.
Okay. Last thing about a Camaro I've got, the 302. The 302 Camaro. I don't know production. I don't know much about it, but to me, it is the ultimate Camaro race car.
Yeah, I'd agree, and you're referring to the hot 302 that they put in the Z28 from 1960. That's right, 1967. Yeah, and I will say, if I was going to have a 6th spot or at least an honorable mention, to me, the 1960. I'll tack that on here. An honorable mention would be 1967 Z28. 602 are built, and just like the 2014, 2015. Representing the most track focused package that you could get from General Motors. And I know a lot of people like that 1969 Camaro Z28. And obviously that's probably one of the top 3, if not top 5 classic cars that any car enthusiast can name or would want. And obviously the package got refined by then. But to me, it's that 1967. It's the purest essence of a track-focused Camaro. And you're right, that 302 was a hot little performer, worked great on the track, and really helped to set Camaro off as a serious corner carver, whereas the Z01 was to establish the Camaro as a straight line competitor. So my favorite Camaro, I talked about the 67 Stingray was my favorite Corvette. My favorite Camaro is the Big Mouth. What is it, a 7071? Okay, yeah, the split bumper, sure. Yeah, split bumper. And I just liked the design. I liked it. It looked aggressive coming down the road at you. The split bumper really just kind of set it off and made it kind of its own little beast. And I just have, that was probably the one for me. So very cool. Yeah. Well, and I know as we wrap up our conversation, Ken, I know a lot of listeners might be wondering what's next for Camaro. And that's in terms of is the book closed metaphorically on Camaro, the Camaro pony car era? We've had 6 generations, and the 6th generation production is winding down here in the next, I think, couple of weeks, and the future is uncertain, in terms of what's ahead. But I'm optimistic that there will be a 7th generation 2-door pony car on the horizon. That's what I'm hoping for this Christmas. I'm hoping Santa brings me news of that. We are optimistic as well, Matt, because we believe that things that are happening now are not inherent of what the future is. We may go through a few years of trial and error on a few new market value type of builds, but I think that it's going to come back to, and it's always going to hold, especially with the numbers that they're making now. These cars, not just the numbers in production, but the numbers of the value of these cars. People are willing to pay for this kind of horsepower and this kind of serialized build, and I love it. I love it. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think that the classic car market has hit a pinnacle of success. A lot of new money, kids coming in with this new money, and yeah, those European cars look great, but man, sit your ass in an old piece of leather, and it's just nothing better. It just, it makes it so. I could be
angry at the world and go sit in my car. I don't even have to turn it on. But when I do, that's even better. So what is your daily driver, Matt? What do you own?
Well, I was going to say, before I get to that, let me also give my optimism. Maybe we'll get some wind in the sails of enthusiasts out there about what's ahead, because I agree with you. I think the evidence out there overwhelmingly supports the case for a new 7th generation Camaro. And I reference a couple different things that competitors have done. So obviously the modern muscle car era has been a wild ride the last 10 years. And as we had the big three, right? We had the Dodge Challenger and 4-door Charger, which, going back to that C8 conversation, remember how many boats were metaphorically rocked by that 4-door Charger? And now I think enthusiasts can't envision the Charger without 4 doors.
I really think they can't either. It's become the build.
So funny how it's just crazy to me, Kenny, again, to go back when Dodge made that news. There was like pitchforks and, it was like mobs of people who were like, Charger's only 2 doors. And now here we are. But what a great duo Dodge has had with that Challenger Charger platform, and to continue to raise the bar in offering higher performance trims with the SRTs, the Demons and the Red Eyes, and how they've built out so much personality in those cars.
Yes.
Where when you survey a lot of younger enthusiasts today, their dream car are those cars. Yeah. That is bananas. I'm saying, like, compared to decades ago, where if you had surveyed 10 different high school kids on the street and said, what car do you want in your driveway? I think it would, if they had known that in the last couple of years that they would be saying a Dodge Charger Challenger as opposed to a Porsche 911 or a Lamborghini Countach or something like that. But yet that's how Dodge has been able to get that car to the forefront of having it become a pop icon. So kudos to them. Yeah. Now, I will say we're in a very strange environment now where we don't know what's next for the 24 model year. Dodge had an incredible year with the last call, the final 7 editions, as they send off the current Charger Challenger platform, and we don't know what's in store ahead. It seems that they will be coming back with some 2-door muscle car, but we don't know. But the reason why I'm optimistic that not only will Dodge come back, but I think Chevrolet will come back, is what Ford has done with the S650 Mustang when they brought that back in the last year or two, and how they have kind of breathed some new life into that segment with the Dark Horse, this brand new concept of a performance variant.
Well, they got the GT. The GT3 has gotten everybody excited, and the fact that they're doing a Mustang only series in IMSA, I think it's next year or the year after that, I can't remember, but clearly Ford is doubling down on gasoline powered sports cars. So I agree with you.
They really are. And I think it's good news, because I will say, just as we talk about uncertainty, remember when Ford released the Mach-E and how many people were up in arms about that, and how I think it has settled into its own level within the Mustang lineup. The Mach-E, whether you like it or don't, did not replace the 2-door pony car. Nope. We got a refreshed, S650 all new Mustang that is ICE powered, that is gasoline powered. And so I do think that, based on the fact that Mustang has a lot of momentum, they've obviously put a lot of money into the development of that platform. They're going to want it around for a couple more model years. I do think that more of the American buyers are wanting a fun driving experience. We're seeing that too, guys, with how we're actually seeing an increase in new cars being sold with a manual transmission. Not because of efficiency. They're not as efficient as an automatic transmission, or even as capable from a performance standpoint as some of these automatics that can just shift lightning quick. But drivers are saying, hey, I actually want that 3-pedal experience. So because of that, I'm optimistic. I'm holding my fingers crossed that we're going to see a new era of pony car wars unfold in the next couple years, with new contenders from Dodge and Chevrolet taking on this S650, and just kind of a new era. And, guys, it might be something different. I'm not necessarily saying electric. I think it will continue to be smaller displacement, forced induction, but I don't know if there'll be a big change in output. Obviously that's a big talk with Hellcat going away. what's next. But I think a Charger or Challenger Hurricane powered twin turbo platform could be awesome for enthusiasts. And so I'm looking forward to the months and years ahead when it comes to American pony cars.
Yeah, Matt, you are bringing up so many things, and I made so many notes while we were talking and listening to you tell us about all the stuff that we needed to know from our questions. I love and appreciate so much you came on and did this with us. I'm going to have to bring you back in 24 because now I've got questions about the questions that we asked you that you answered for us.
Hey, no problem at all. It's been fun, guys. As you can tell, we all love talking cars, and it's so fun when you're talking about exciting cars that are fun to drive, and definitely when you're talking about the cars that are fun to look at Mecum Auctions. And thanks for having me on, guys. It's been a blast. I look forward to seeing you and listeners at the world's largest collector car auction, Mecum Kissimmee. And I'll leave you with this, guys. It's going to be big this year, special anniversary. Mecum is so excited to be celebrating 25 years of this landmark auction. Can't wait to see everyone out there.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And Matt, you will see us, and we appreciate it again, and we'll talk really soon. Thanks again, everybody. This is Matt Avery, and if you don't know him, check him out. He's phenomenal. Appreciate you, Matt. Everybody, this is the American Car Class Radio program. Thanks for tuning in.